Hello and welcome to the radiotimes.com Doctor Who podcast. My name's Hugh and this week I am joined by radiotimes.com gaming editor Rob Lean. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Hugh. How's it going?
It's going good. I am coming to you live from your perspective only, Rob, from the home of Doctor Who. I'm in Cardiff, not for any Doctor Who related reason. I'm just here in Cardiff, hanging out.
Oh yeah, that's what they always say.
I'm secretly in series 13. I'm the new companion. Don't tell anyone. Oh no, I've said it, and it's impossible for me to edit it out because I'm really bad at editing. Unfortunately, you all know my big secret now. No, I'm not here for any work-related reason. I just happened to be in Cardiff, but I thought it was worth mentioning. God, I hope I don't start a rumour now. Anyway, funny thing is, we are here to talk about Doctor Who Series 13 rumours, so perhaps it's appropriate that I've just started one of my own. Specifically, we are talking about, there was this thing a few weeks ago, which we haven't had a chance to talk about yet on the podcast, where there was a leak for what I think is a Doctor Who graphic novel, which isn't officially announced yet, but on what I think was the publisher's website, there was a leaked synopsis for the episode, which was quite, I don't know, it was quite interesting. It sort of suggested that it would tie in with Series 13 and told us what the plot was, and it had everyone kind of thinking, what does this mean? Rob, do you have the synopsis to hand? Could you read it out?
I do, and I can. So yeah, this is all in quotation marks from Now. A thrilling new Doctor Who graphic novel which stars fan favourite Captain Jack Harkness as he goes up against the insidious Torchwood Institute. In the midst of kicking alien butt and looking good doing it, Captain Jack Harkness is suddenly transported through a time window to 19th century Cardiff. Again, realising there's more than one thing afoot, he sets out to uncover what the Victorian-era Torchwood Institute team are up to behind closed doors, hoping to solve the mystery of why time windows are cropping up everywhere. But what he finds is very unexpected and will certainly leave him needing a hand from some old friends. And here comes the interesting bit. Bursting straight out of the long-running hit television series, this bold new tale ties in directly with episode 2 of the hotly anticipated series 13. Buy it, read it, and then travel back in time to read it for the first time all over again.
So even hearing you say that, I've suddenly had more ideas about what that could mean. But yeah, so that was on the official Penguin Random House website, and some fans spotted that, and then it was promptly removed. However, without going to specifics, we checked it out, and it was still available, the synopsis, on other sites, which we won't name. I think it might be taken down off those anyway, but there were other official sites where the book was going to be sold, the graphic novel rather, which the synopsis was on. So we have verified it. We contacted the BBC and they declined to comment on speculation. So that's that bit done. So now we can just talk about, we can just speculate now. The BBC's not going to comment on it, but we can still do it. So yeah, I mean, I guess the instant thing that you'd think, reading that is, if it says it ties in with Series 13, Captain Jack's starring in this, this graphic novel. Is Captain Jack coming back? We've talked about this a lot in previous episodes. It seems possible. I mean, John Barron's obviously been back in the series in recent years. He was back in 2020 for a brief cameo, and then right at the start of this year in the festive special. So, plausible, right? He could be back.
Yeah, very plausible. I think once someone comes back once and then twice, it kind of each time, not necessarily diminishing returns in terms of how fun it is to see, but becomes less of a surprise when they come back again. So yeah, I think that's pretty feasible.
However, I wonder whether there's slightly more to it than that, because the way this is described, it's, Captain Jack's in the middle of kicking alien butt and looking good doing it, apparently. He's suddenly transported through a time window to 19th century Cardiff, and then he's going up against Torchwood team. So this doesn't sound to me like, it says it ties into episode 2. It bursts straight out of the long-running TV series and ties in with episode 2. That makes me feel like, how it's described, Captain Jack's in the middle of something and he gets unexpectedly taken to this setting that is specifically very Torchwood focused. It's Cardiff in the Victorian era Torchwood Institute, who he's kind of run into before. So it sounds to me more like, when it says it ties into episode 2, it's not as in saying, oh, Captain Jack is in episode 2 and here he is now. I mean, there's a possibility that he turns up at the end of episode 2 and this is what he was doing beforehand. This is like a little prequel or something. But I think it's more likely that actually something happens in episode 2 of series 13 that kind of affects Jack in this graphic novel, and I think it's time windows. And I was thinking about this. Is that what they were called in The Girl in the Fireplace? Were they called time windows?
Oh, that's a good point. I have no idea, but they were a bit time windowy, weren't they?
They were. I mean, one of them was, I think, was literally a window, it was a mirror. But yeah, it seems like time windows is just like a hole in time that you kind of fall through. Is, you know, sounds pretty basic. We don't know that, and I do wonder if it's a little bit like the cracks in series 5. You know, where, you know, the TARDIS blew up, and then throughout that whole series, there were these cracks in space and time that kind of turned up in different places. I'm wondering if maybe something happens in episode 2 of the new series where these time windows open up, and then maybe some of the rest of the series is them trying to fix this, like people ending up in the wrong place or something like that, you know, like a bit like the Rift, I suppose. You know, just kind of like, but kind of all over the place. So like, say some random person from Earth gets deposited in the future, some, you know, alien ends up in, you know, 1970s Manchester for a Life on Mars crossover, and they are actually from Mars. That'd be great, actually. And yeah, and then maybe that's how this works in terms of there'll be other spin-offs. You know, maybe this is like their big idea for the new series. You know, that's the kind of big arc. This kind of, ooh, what's going on with these time windows? Oh no, all this stuff's going on all over the place.
Yeah, I can see that. Have you ever watched DC's Legends of Tomorrow?
I haven't, although I enjoyed when Arthur Darvill was cast as a time master. But no, I haven't. Is that a premise in that?
Not necessarily time windows, but it is actually quite Doctor Who, that show. It's quite a fun one to watch when there's no Doctor Who on. But basically, like every season, it's basically like a collection of characters from like the Flash and Arrow and other DC superhero shows, and basically like they go off in a spaceship on adventures. But basically, every new season, basically a thing happens, which is normally their fault at the start of the season, which sends like a oh, and now we've accidentally unleashed magical forces onto the timeline, and then they'll spend the rest of that season like going back in time to stop, you know, some magician from doing stuff that he shouldn't be doing in the 1800s or whatever. And like kind of like what he just said, like, oh no, we've accidentally put all of the worst criminals in history, we've accidentally kind of dropped them all in different points in time, kind of thing. And it is quite a handy shorthand for just then there's a lot less like exposition to have to be done at the start of every episode, because it's like, oh no, Genghis Khan's in Matalan, let's go and sort that out. That's not an episode, but it should be. But
I mean, that should definitely be an episode of Doctor Who. Genghis Khan in Matalan, it even rhymes, which are all the best Doctor Who ones. I mean, if Chris Chibnall is listening, you know, get Rob on your writing stuff. Genghis Khan in forget arachnids in the UK. Genghis Khan in Matalan. I love that. Yeah, I feel like that could be. To be honest, that I hadn't thought of it in that way. But if they were trying to do a kind of way of keeping the story going forward, maybe a similar approach to that could be good, where you kind of don't need this exposition for why this weird thing's happening. It's like it's a continued thing. Something happens with, you know, these time windows, throws people all over the place, and then that means that the main series can kind of be dealing with it over the course of its slightly shorter 8 episodes. But then also you can have these spin-offs in the kind of, you know, Time Lord Victorious style, having like comic strips and, you know, graphic novels, and who knows, maybe even like, I'm not sure how it would work with Big Finish and stuff, but yeah, they could certainly do comics and tie-ins and stuff saying, oh, this is where that happened elsewhere. The one caveat I have for this idea, because I do think this might be what it is the thing where it says, what he finds is very unexpected and will certainly leave him needing a hand from some old friends. So that does make me wonder if maybe there's maybe more of a connection to Doctor Who than that, because the whole thing about needing old friends, I mean, it could be that that's, you know, Torchwood 3. He has to, you know, somehow get them back to Victorian times, or, you know, some other people that he knows in Victorian times. Maybe he'll run into like an earlier version of the Doctor who happens to be knocking about there, like the Ninth Doctor knocked about a bit in Victorian times, I think. So, but it sounds a bit like when it says he needs some help from some old friends, you would assume that is like the Doctor and Yaz, right? Like that kind of is the first thing you'd think. And so then that brings me back to, you know, is there a kind of, is this like happening parallel to the new series 13? Maybe it isn't a case of like this is necessarily a prequel and then Jackson the main series. Maybe it's more like this is set between episodes of Doctor Who. Like something happens in episode 2 of Doctor Who, and then maybe they do get a call from Jack, and we never see him in the show, but they just go and help him. I don't know. I mean, does that make sense? Like, I guess I'm just saying, like, maybe there's a way that those characters appear in this graphic novel that doesn't mean it's a huge time with the TV show. But then part of me's thinking, but then why would it specifically tie into episode 2 rather than series 13? Like, something's got to happen in episode 2, right? Episode 2 is like got to be a big episode in some way.
Yeah, I love how specific it is that tying into series 13, episode 2. Like,
yeah. But just for last 10 minutes and not the last minute. yeah. If I'll give you the time code, it ties specifically in to this bit of episode 2. No, it does make you think. I mean, because there was another bit of me where I was like, is it maybe the setting? Is it, oh, this is the same place that episode 2 is set, but it's, it's Cardiff, it's a Torchwood thing. It seems like an odd coincidence if they're doing that. And based on, what we've seen of filming and so on, I mean, we don't know what episodes they filmed. It doesn't really seem like they're doing anything. I don't think it seems like they're doing anything in 19th century Cardiff. I think there's possibly something with the Crimean War, but that obviously wouldn't be Cardiff. So I don't really know what else it could be. I mean, my thesis is still something's going to happen with time. There's going to be some time windows. Everyone kind of knows what that means. Time window. You hear that, you go, oh yeah, window in time, classic. But there's not necessarily going to be a big tie-in with Jack in the main series. That's kind of my instinct. But I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I could see it being like series 13, episode 2. Something happens. Lots of time windows are popped open around all over the shop. And then the graphic novel is kind of shows you, and Jack got involved with the whole time window thing. He went on this whole adventure. And then maybe in the graphic novel, maybe he calls on some old friends, and because it's pretty easy in a graphic novel to throw in whatever character you want.
That's true. Like, the Brigadier's there, and River Song, and and Chameleon and Adric. They're all hanging out. To be honest, it could be as well. Like he calls up the Doctor or whatever, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we've just dealt with some of those. I will come and help you." And then that's what it is. Like maybe it's not even a whole series arc. Maybe they literally just deal with time windows in episode 1 and episode 2 as like a 2-parter, and then they fix it, and then they go, okay, now I'm going to go around fixing all these time windows. And then Jack's like, oh, I've got some time windows for you, Doctor. And she's like, okay, I'll fix it for you. But episode 3, it's like, okay, now off to fight more giant mutant spiders. Incidentally, part of the reason I may have sounded a little bit distracted in one of the thing just before Rob spoke there is because I was looking up The Girl in the Fireplace, and time windows is the specific nomenclature used for that phenomenon.
Oh, very good.
In the episode Repair Androids from a Spaceship from the 51st century, create time windows. Who else is from the 51st century? Captain Jack Harkness, I think you'll find. So maybe there's a connection there. But yeah, in the Wikipedia article, the word time window appears like, I don't know, about 9 times. So yeah, basically, it's a doorway to another place in space and time. I'm sure if I was on TARDIS data core, it could tell me the 65 million times that time windows have turned up in, Big Finish, obligatory mention, and everything else. But yeah, I would be interested to see if this is, I'm sure that whoever has written this is aware of the connection. Like, it's not a coincidence they've used that terminology, because we've heard vortexes and cracks in time and tears in time and rifts and so on, and there's always specific terminology to use for stuff. I think it's possible you'd come up with time window independently, but I guess it's supposed to function in this way. And that was them using mass amounts of energy to essentially punch holes in space and time to sort of spy on a French woman. So maybe something similar is happening here. I don't know. It'd be interesting if it was like a sort of, we know that we're getting Weeping Angels, or we think we know we're getting Weeping Angels in the new series. So it'd be interesting to see if, the entire thing is just Stephen Moffat riffs. It's like, oh, the time windows are back and the Weeping Angels, and twist, the monster from Listen is here, and it was a Cyberman all along. No, I'm interested. I'm actually quite pleased that I suddenly, when we were talking about it, I thought, oh, time windows, I've heard that before. So there we go. I would be interested to see if that's what this is about, or whether we've completely got it wrong and it is just like the Doctor briefly stops in 19th century Cardiff, goes like, oh, oh, Torchwood was here. I'm not going to be here anymore, though. On to our main adventure. And then that's the tie-in. That's the episode 2 tie-in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. I've been wrong before, but it is interesting. I mean, it must be something of relative importance because it was deleted. That's always something we would consider. And also, you know, it's part of the reason we're going so all in on this is because we've had a few details about Series 13. We know there's a new companion played by John Bishop. We've seen some filming stuff suggesting there's a new look for some Sontarans. We've got the Weeping Angels in there. You know, Mary Seacole might be in the series. So we've kind of got these dribs and drabs, but we don't really know anything about the story. You know, we know maybe a couple of the monsters. We know that there's rumors Jodie Whittaker's going to leave, but actually the kind of story that this series wants to tell is a bit of a mystery to us. So this is an interesting clue in what we might expect. At least that's what I think. Do you think it's interesting, Rob, or have I been very boring?
I do think it's interesting. I would love if it turns out to be nothing, and it's like at some point someone opens a window in episode 2 of series 13, and then
just like Captain Jack. That'd be great.
Yeah.
It would be the James Nesbitt in Line of Duty of Doctor Who, Mr. X. It's actually a photo of a mugshot of Captain Jack is seen in episode 2 in Victorian, you know, Torchwood land, and that's literally the entire thing. To be honest, as I say that, I'm like, that's possible. I can see that.
Yeah.
But what do you think, listeners at home, wherever you do call your home? Do you think that we are seeing Captain Jack turn up in the next series, or do you think it's more likely to be some sort of strange time window arc that the Doctor needs to solve over the course of the episodes? Let us know in the comments if you're on YouTube or, you know, on Twitter, Facebook, at Radio Times. If you are on other platforms, this podcast is also available on things like Spotify and Acast and Apple Podcasts, I believe. So if you're listening there and want to get your voice heard, you know, there's lots of ways to get in touch with us. We'll be back next week with more Doctor Who podcast fun. And there's loads of stuff on our website. We've got some Big Finish votes, which are quite fun for your favourite Big Finish story, and lots of Doctor Who news and features as per usual. Until next time, I've been Hugh.
And I've been Rob.
And we're about to fall back in a time window to, you know, 19th century Cardiff, which is very similar to 21st century Cardiff, which is where I already am. So I guess that saves a bit of time. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.